Now let's talk about evaluating responses. Here we'll look at how to monitor bids, comparing bids, viewing and creating scenarios, and awarding bids. Now let's discuss the evaluation process. An event manager examines bids and narrows down the fields. Panel questionnaires will allow us to solicit internal feedback. Event managers create scenarios. Other stakeholders can create scenarios, and then decision makers review those presented scenarios. While a bid is in process, it's important to monitor the responses. In this snapshot we see here, we see that there are 4 suppliers who have successfully submitted their bids, 1 supplier whose response is in progress, 2 have intent to bid, 1 has no bid, 2 intention not declared, and 1 event has not been reviewed. This allows you to take a look at the status in which suppliers are in. If they've submitted their bid, you'll see the response percentage as marked 100% complete. Response in progress is 27%, and that lets us know that Triton Technologies is in the process of submitting their bids, however, they've not completed. Dark Star Tech and Magic Computer Dude are intent to bid at 18%. That means they followed the process, intended that they do want to bid, but have not moved any further. Zurich Enterprises is also at 18%, but their status is no bid. They have entered in a no bid reason, so they are not going to participate in the event. Atlantic Coast Computers and East Coast Technologies both have 0%, intention not declared. This allows us to see that they've logged in, but they've not moved past the login process. And Terabytes Tech has not viewed the invitation at all. When ready to evaluate responses, we can come to our scenarios page. This will allow us to view a scenario, create a scenario, or load a save scenario. Here we can see up to 5 suppliers per page and the breakdown of their bids. Here's an example of actions that are available. Please note, you will only be able to create scenarios based on what features you have turned on for your event. So for example, we will not be able to run a scenario on panel questionnaires if your event did not have panel questionnaires configured. Here we see different actions that are available highlighted. We can award to individual suppliers, or we can choose to do no award. The highlight near I widgets are us indicates pinning. This allows us to separate Everlast and Meridian Dynamics for whatever reason away from the rest of the suppliers. When ready to create scenarios, you will always have the option to create the lowest bid and the lowest bid split award. Again, only event features that have been configured for the event will be able to be used in the event scenario creation. In this example, we can create a best questionnaire rating, best auto score, and lowest cost. Once scenarios have been created, if users do not have access to the system, there's also the option to export those details. With the export, here's an example of what that looks like. It is a breakdown in Excel, and you can share with folks who do not have access to Sourcing Director. A look and learn, evaluating bids, narrowing the list, viewing bid in built-in scenarios, creating a new scenario, loading, exporting scenarios, and finally finalizing awards. Now let's look at what the suppliers see when participating in an event. Once they click on the link to access the sourcing event, they'll be taken here to the Sourcing Director Triangle University Supplier Management Portal. Here they'll enter in their email address. Once the email address is selected, you'll then click Next. The supplier will have the option to enter in their password if an account has been found for them. If an account has not been found, the supplier can create an account. This page can also be viewed, in this case, in English. Some buyers have host sites that are configured in other languages, and if there were an option for that, we would see that in this drop-down. If a supplier has not created an account just yet, they have the option to click on the Create Account portal. I'll go ahead and click on Login, and I've not entered in the right password. So the supplier gets an error message where they can try a different password or they can click on Trouble Logging In. Once the proper password has been submitted, the supplier will land on their homepage. Here's where they'll see additional documents, sourcing director events and exports, different reporting options for their scorecards, admin functionality, and registration information. Here I can see the event that I've been invited to participate as a supplier, and I would click View Event. The supplier will make its way through and complete the wizard and then submit their bids. So for example, if I click on Proceed to Prerequisite, I'm going to complete my prerequisites. Anything that is mandatory is highlighted, and I'll save my process. Then I'll need to select my intent to bid. If I select Yes, I intend to bid, the supplier can come and edit that here. By selecting No Bid, there's an option to add a no bid reason. Notice the prerequisite and buyer attachments have now been complete. Buyer attachments don't require any action from the supplier, but there are additional information that is encouraged for suppliers to download. Next, on to the questions. Here I can indicate what products or brands we're able to offer for computers, answer the questions as far as any subcontracts, indicate when we'll be able to get the products at the end of the award. This bid closes on February 8th. And if we have a service center in the Pittsburgh area. All of my questions have been submitted, so that has been marked with a green check mark. And now I can indicate what my unit price is for a computer. When is the estimated delivery date? If a supplier feels more comfortable, they can respond item by item, or they can export this to Excel and complete it all in Excel and then upload it back into the system. By clicking Next, it'll automatically advance the supplier to the service line items. If you start with the service line item and click Next, please note it won't take you back to the product line item, so suppliers should be made aware of that. Then I'm going to enter in what the installation service fee is going to be, how long that's going to take, and then click Next. Suppliers also have an option to submit a question. So if they have a question, they'll access the Q&A board. Here, they can ask a question. And even have the option to attach a file. I'm going to submit the question, go to my review and submit, certify, and then submit my responses. The supplier then gets a confirmation that the response has been submitted, as well as what the date and time is for them to withdraw or change the bid. Now let's look and learn and review and monitor our sourcing event evaluation and monitor the bid. So we have our event open, suppliers have been invited and have successfully submitted bids. If I go to view responses, this will allow me to see what suppliers have viewed our event, submitted bids, or who have not declared their intention to bid. We have 2 suppliers who have successfully submitted bids, 1 supplier whose response is in progress, a supplier who has no bid, and a supplier who has not indicated their intention. We also have several suppliers who have not looked at or opened the bid just yet. If I want to view Make My Data's response, for example, I'll go in and view response. I can see how that supplier responded to the prerequisites, what their responses to the questions were, as well as how they bid on each of the individual items. If I go back to the event, in order to look at these responses side by side, the event needs to be closed. Before we actually close the event, we can go in and explore if there's any questions that have been submitted via the Q&A board. We do so by going to Tools and Q&A board. Here we see that there has been 1 question submitted, and it's been submitted by Make My Data, for example. Will there be another stage? Here I can come in and answer the question, decline to answer, or post a question like this if I need to post the question publicly. If I answer the question, I can say, no, please give your best and final, and make this public. So all suppliers participating will be able to see this question and the answer. The suppliers will not be able to see who asked the question, but they will be able to see what the question is and the answer. As a buyer, you also can submit a question. So if you know that you have frequently asked questions, you can come here and post multiple questions for the suppliers to see and the answers. If I go back to view my responses, here we can see all of the responses. Again, if I want to look at them side by side, the event needs to be closed. For training purposes, we can come in and take a look at our event actions. At this point, you can copy the event, make it a template, choose the extend the event, hide event prices, or since this event has proxy bidding, designate which suppliers we're going to proxy bid for. Under workflow actions, I'm going to close the event early so that we can move on to the next step. In a real-world circumstance, you'll never close the event early once an event close date has been communicated to the suppliers. Now that our event is under evaluation, we have evaluation actions to where we can evaluate all the responses. Here we can expand and see we have 2 suppliers who have successfully submitted their bids. We can see the adjustments that have been made. And if we scroll down, we can see how they responded to each one of these answers. And any auto scoring points or cost adjustments that have been made. If I'd like to view a scenario that has the best auto score, I'll select View Scenario, and it will give me a pending award for that supplier who has the best auto score. I can choose to reset this scenario. It'll ask me if I'm sure, or I can go in and now take a look at who has the best or lowest adjusted bid price. Lowest adjusted bid price is Darkstar Tech. I could come in and choose to split between the suppliers, but before so, I need to actually select the items. So for example, if I wanted the computers to go to one supplier, I could select Darkstar Tech, or if I wanted to split the computers in half between both of the suppliers, I can indicate how many suppliers I want to go to each party. Once I've made my recommendation, I can give a note as to why I'm giving this recommendation. I can also choose to save this so that any other users can come in So if another user came in and loaded a saved scenario, they'll be able to see what my scenarios are or what my recommendations are. At any point, you can export all the responses. This will give us an Excel file with these details. This will also allow you to share the details of your evaluation with folks who do not have access to Sourcing Director. When ready, I can choose to finalize the award, Once it's finalized, it will go through the next set of workflow actions. Here, I can choose to approve it or create a new stage for bidding. Here's a snapshot of a scenario that has been awarded. In this case, Everlast and Viridian Dynamics have been awarded. When you go in to monitor the responses, we see an example of details and response notes, a breakdown of the different auto scoring, average questionnaire rating, best value, and cost per quality point.